So it is
Definitely
Tuesday. It is Tes Zayin Shvat Tovshin Ayin Vov. And we are in the Mamar Vayihiyu Chayei Sara. Tovshin Yud Gimel. And we are on page Mem Gimel. In Sefer Mamar Vayihiyu Sefer Mamar Tovshin Yud Gimel. On page Mem Gimel. On the top of the page, the second line, by the full stop. Ukmei Kain. The Rebbe over here is discussing Odom Pnimi and Odom Chitzoni, the inner man and the outer man, and he's explaining that each one of them has two dimensions, inner and outer. So in other words, in the inner man, there is Pnimi and Chitzoni, inner and outer, and in the outer man, there is inner and outer. Right? And he began by explaining the inner aspect of the man, the nefesh, and chayes klali, the general life force. I think before we go into learning this on the inside, I want to read to you, if you'll indulge me, a section of Perek Nun Aleph of Tanya.
Nun Aleph.
Nun Aleph.
Okay.
Morning. Find it here. Perek Nun Aleph. If I have the right book. Which will assist us, when we read this, it'll assist us in understanding what the Rebbe is saying here. In Perek Nun Aleph, the Alter Rebbe begins to explain, or he explains even further, even more, he elaborates on what he said in chapter 35, quoting from the Zohar, from the Yenuka, that the light of the Shekhinah that rests upon a Yid needs oil. What is the fuel? What is the oil? And why is it necessary to have that fuel to assist, to enhance the resting of the Shekhinah upon a person? It would seem that it's enough that the person has a soul, a neshama, right? So the Alter Rebbe begins to explain this. And he says like this. I'll read it to you in English. The key to understanding the subject is to be found in the text, and from my flesh I see God. Which is a similar idea to what we're learning here, because the Rebbe the Maimer is talking about Olam Kotten Ze Ha'odom. Right? So you find these two dimensions in man, you find these two dimensions in the world. Up here he's talking about Mibsori Achzalaka. From the person we can see what's going on with godliness. So he says, by way of analogy, the human soul pervades all 248 organs of the body, from head, the highest part of the body, to foot, the lowest part of the body. The soul pervades the body to the extent that no organ or portion of it remains void of the soul. Nevertheless, the soul's principal abode is revealed from, Nevertheless, the soul's principal abode in a revealed form, and its dwelling place in an all-encompassing, non-revealed form is in one's brain. And from the brain, the soul is diffused throughout all the organs. Now this takes place in all the organs simultaneously, as the Rebbe explains. And moreover, each organ receives from the soul, a different form of life force and functional power appropriate to it, according to its composition and character, according to each organ's specifics. In other words, the difference between the functional ability of one organ and that of another does not derive from the organ itself, like water in a colored glass, for example, which takes on the color of its containing vessel. Rather, does each organ draw from the soul its ability to see or hear, and so on, as the Alter Rebbe continues. Right? And he goes on to explain how each aspect of this, of each individual soul, stems from the life force that clothes itself in the soul, rather than from the organ. Meaning to say that it's not that the Eiver Ha'odam, the particular body part, contains a pure, simple energy, and it's the organ of the body that forms that energy and causes it to function in a certain way. No. There is an aspect in the energy that is already characterized, that already possesses, albeit in potentia, characteristics specific to the particular organ, limb, or body part that it will ultimately animate. At the same time, each specific organ possesses characteristics that draws that type of energy.
Draws that type
Yes.
of energy into it.
But the point being, what the Alter Rebbe is saying is that there is something in the particular energy. You're right. Of course, the energy itself is not as shaped, if you will, as it is once it comes into the organ, a particular organ.
You're saying it's not the same as electricity, in other words.
Correct. Well, electricity is something which is specific to electrical appliances or electrical circuits. You can't put
to a tree, doesn't
correct.
do anything.
So it's also a specific type of energy. Okay, but where does that shiur, that form, that shape begin? It begins already in the koyach. Of course, once it fuses with the particular Eiver HaGuf, particular part of the body, that takes on a far more shaped, categorized form, right? But we're getting slightly. One second, we're getting slightly off subject.
Why it needs to be.
Okay, 1 second. We're getting slightly off subject because the point that the Alter Rebbe says over here is this: there's Chayes Klali and Chayes Prati. That's the point that he's making. So in other words, like this: you have the nefesh. If you want to look at it Barichas, you can look it up in Perek Nalv, because that's where the Rebbe draws this particular aspect of the Maimon. You have the soul, which is beyond everything, pure, poshut b'tachas apshitus, as it were, unformed, unshaped. From that soul emanate the koyches hanefesh, the powers, the abilities of the soul, the functions of the soul. But that koyches hanefesh has there are two dimensions to it. There's the way they are in a manner of klali, in a general manner, as potentials, and there is the way they are already in details and in aspects. So in other words, and he says like this: the mokim mishkan hanefesh is in the me'ach shebarosh. The place where the soul dwells is in the person's brain. Which aspect of the soul dwells in the person's brain? The chayes klali, meaning to say, once the soul is already at a stage of having distinct potentials, as it were, or notional potentials of abilities, the part of the soul, as it were, that comes into the eyes, the part that goes into the ears, into the hands, into the heart, and so on and so forth. The place where it dwells in a general form as potential is in the brain.
A bit like stem cells, that they all, when they go from specific cells to a specific limb, that every
I don't know enough about stem cells to be able to.
like a potential for any.
The primitive cells can morph into
Yeah.
any cells that they surround.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know enough about stem cells to be able to tell you whether it's similar or not. But I guess in notionally, that's what the situation. That's what it is in a far more spiritual and refined way, obviously.
Yeah.
But the Nekudas is like this, in slightly in answer to your question, Harris. The Rebbe says like this. The Rebbe says you must say that there's an aspect in the koyach, a nefesh, in the actual soul itself, which is similar to the particular limb that it ultimately comes into and animates, because otherwise the brain would not feel the particular pain associated with the particular limb. The Rebbe discusses this particular point. Why this exact point is what the Rebbe elucidates in Perek Nun Aleph of Tanya on this, because in Kabbalah, incidentally, there is a very well-known machlekes, whether Eiros are pshutim or Eiros are mitziyorim, whether the divine energies, for the Esesphiris, for example, which is another way, another dimension of koiches, right? Koiches and nefesh are comparable to the Esesphiris.
You see, in the body, there's two nerve systems. There's a nerve system which goes to the organ, and a nerve system which comes back from the organ.
It goes back and forth.
Motory sensory. So, how does that work in terms of the solar analogy? Because everything in Sariya is Zalaka. So, how would that work?
That probably has to do with the Rotzu V'Shoiv aspect of the Koyach, of the Koyches.
Yeah, but
it flows and ebbs.
It's the sensory feedback which the brain feels, which is not the same as the motor feedback. It's you understand what I'm saying? How does it work?
I don't know, but I think it's going to be a absolutely short. We're going back.
That's probably the Rotzu V'Shoiv aspect, if you want to talk about it in the Ruchnistic sense.
Is the physical manifestation of how what's allowed to happen.
Let's put it this way: you're saying it's not the same. Rotzu V'Shoiv is also not the same. There is a different motivation for Rotzu, and there's a different motivation for Shoiv in the Koyach HaNefesh. The Rotzu aspect is where the Koyach feels.
You would be saying that the brain physically is sending down a different energy to each organ.
Correct.
Via that nerve.
Yeah. That's what the Alter Rebbe says.
It doesn't need to. Because if electricity...
So the Rebbe says that it doesn't...
Yeah.
Well, electricity is unique to... It is unique to electricity. It sends electricity. It doesn't send nuclear energy. It doesn't send fossil fuel. It sends electricity.
It's a different medium, that's all.
By way of analogy, with a radio and a TV set, it's the Kaylee, the same electricity with the Kaylee, and because of the configuration, the Kaylee enables that energy to be expressed in a different way.
So
the Rebbe have to have...
The Rebbe the central theme of the Rebbe's Ha'ara point on Perek Nun Aleph, on this section of Perek Nun Aleph, is to discuss precisely this. Why are we compelled to say that the Koyach HaNefesh that goes to the body, to the particular part of the body, must have some form, as it were, in the Koyach itself? Why can't we say that form, that characteristic, is impressed upon the koyach through the limb, like you're saying now? And the central point of the Rebbe is because otherwise the brain would not feel the particular pain, as it were. In other words, the proof for the fact that it's already there in the koyach, in its potential, as it is in the brain before it sends it down, is the fact that it feels the particular pain specific to that particular limb. Otherwise, it would not be able to feel that. That's what the Rebbe says. Have a look in Perek Nun Aleph in the Ha'ara. This is the Rebbe's. This is the Rebbe's language. But I mean, you're right. There are different opinions concerning this. The Alter Rebbe takes on the position that the koyach is already has a similarity to that particular limb. Let me see if I can find what the Rebbe says here in the Ha'ara of the Rebbe. It's a very long Ha'ara of the Rebbe here.
Oh, here comes the blue chair. Oh, yeah.
The manner in which the organ receives the life force and functional power can be explained in two ways. One is that the life force emanating from the soul to the organ is utterly plain and uncompounded, possessing none of the diverse qualities and powers of the various organs. According to this explanation, the various functional powers of the organs would be differentiated only after the life force actually becomes enclosed within the organs. That's what you're saying, right, Harris? For example, only after the life force becomes enclosed within the eye would it become the power of sight, and only after it becomes enclosed within the ear would it become the power of hearing. The second possible explanation, and that accepted by Tanya, is that the soul, despite its pristine, uncompounded essence, includes in potential form all the powers of the various organs, and it is these faculties which each individual organ receives. The eye receives from the life force of the soul the power to see, etc., right? The commentary of the Rebbe explains why we must accept this second explanation. If we were to say that the various functional powers are not differentiated in potentia within the life force until after it becomes enclosed within the organ, then the brain would be conscious of the same sensation from what is experienced in the eye as from what is experienced in the ear, because these sensations have already left their respective organs, etc. It's a very long ha'ara. Look at it inside. But basically, the Rebbe is at pains to explain why we are forced to take on this position, why the Alter Rebbe takes on this position that the koyach is already where?
Yeah.
That the koyach, within the koyach itself, within the life force, there's already in potentia, as he says, in a potential form, some association to eyesight. The eyesight begins not in the eye, but in the koyach, in the energy.
He's really speaking
that closes itself in the eye.
About the return energy rather than the giving energy, because the difference between electricity.
He's saying from the return energy.
The electricity and the neshama, the electricity doesn't receive back from the object.
Okay. Well.
So the analogy is limited in terms of electricity, because electricity and the object which it feeds, the object doesn't send.
You know what would be
back to the.
You know what might be a good example in communication. For example, in intellectual IT,
Yes.
when one computer communicates with another computer, how does my computer know that I'm speaking to you? If I make a FaceTime call or if I'm Skype, right? How do I know that it's you? So my system pings, as it were, your system, and your system responds. So then we know, we're talking to the right one. Maybe you're right in that sense. But look inside in Tanya, look at the Ha'ara of the Rebbe in detail.
I've read that a few times, always difficult. I always understood it to be that the other way.
Continue tomorrow with Shiur.